You know, like they say, even if you lose the tournament, if you win against an A, it's always worth it.
I think there's a sort of pride on the line.
It's a high matchup because it's a battle of who's the best in the West. We have like a huge rivalry going on.
NA는 무조건 이기고 싶어.
Flacco's finally on the board here at MSI.
我们也打回了一些跟我自己的自信了。我觉得我们接下来应该会很顺利的继续打下去。
我个人来说的话，我是很想赢 TSM 的，然后这次感觉我们状态已经好了一点了。
Pull back by 957, exhaust is down, damage is there, then fights it up, but there's a quadruple for Condi.
第二次打 TSM 的时候，我们是肯定会去将他们干掉的，会去复仇的。我们会拿出像打 SKT 一样的状态去面对他们，就让他们做好准备吧。
Welcome everyone and hello from Rio de Janeiro's Jeunesse Arena, home of the 2017 Mid-Season Invitational. Teams have their eyes set on a top 4 finish and nobody wants to miss their chance at the knockout stage. Now earlier today, we got to look at some COS players in the venue. Of course, the teams as well readying up in their ready rooms. We had TSM, G2 Esports, the likes of them all. I'm James Dash Patterson, contributing their collective brain power to the analyst desk today. Our Indiana Frost Curran Black, Chris Papa Smithy Smith, and Joshua Jatley's been the first time you're making an appearance here this week.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Today we finished the first round robin and get to start the rematches. How excited are we to see what these teams have learned and are going to put into practice the second time around?
Yeah, I'm really excited for the second half of the day, but even for the first half of the day, to see how close the pack below SKT actually are. Because if things fall a certain way, there's a chance we have 5 teams tied at 2 and 3.
Absolutely. That could make for a very interesting second half of the day.
And we need that second round robin. I know I need that second round robin because I don't feel like I'm any closer to knowing who the real contenders are. Day 2 is usually the time when teams start to separate themselves, but with Flash Wolves finding 2 victories, everyone else kind of flailing around, it feels like it's still all to claim when it comes to top 4.
It's anyone's race behind SKT. Now, with the second round robin on the horizon, world champions SK Telecom T1 remain undefeated here at MSI, while G2, Team WE, and the Flash Wolves have 2 wins apiece. TSM, the Gigabyte Marines, are at 1 and 3. No surprise, SKT, shoulders above the rest.
Again, you guys continue to wheel me out here to tell you that the Korean team is the best team. Still true. And we are trying to work out who will join them in the top 4 or in the grand final, because I'm not clear about it at all.
And that's the thing there, right? We have to look towards that top 4, and then even within the top 4 at this point, it's all about that 2 and 3 seeds, because you do not want to face SKT in the first round of the knockouts.
And it's really just, like you said, a close race here. We have such a strong middle of the pack, and I'm not even unclear who's the bottom 2 teams. Like, that's how thick it is in this race.
Now, we heard from Peanut's interview that the teams they're specifically looking at G2, Flash Wolves, and Team WE to fill out that 1 through 4 slots. How do we feel about those teams?
Yeah, I still actually have a decent amount of confidence in the Flash Wolves and the way they bounced back. I did have them as the number 2 coming into the tournament, and that was looking a little questionable after they lost their first 2 games. But I feel like the way they've kind of calmed down the tournament, they still have such a strong command of vision control. Maple in particular buys more than double the amount of control wards than any other mid laner in the tournament. So that's why in the later game, I do feel like they kind of reliably find picks and actually have pretty good team fights. So I think that type of style will translate against a lot of these more inconsistent teams.
But it feels like the benefit of the doubt for this team is starting to go away there, because we gave them a lot. 28-game win streak. You tried this time to look past regional strength and say, well, IM result was good. Well, they made upgrades. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And I feel like even some of their victories have been a lot more shaky than expected. So I feel like the benefit of the doubt's starting to go. And whether they're an outright second or just in the contendership for second, I think it's more the latter.
I'm fully off the Flash Wolves hype train, actually. They had their easiest day yesterday in Gigabyte Marines and TSM, you know, the bottom two teams at the tournament there. So no expect that they walk away 2-0. I'm actually going to jump ahead on the LPL hype train.
Oh, really?
Finally,
Convenient.
it's about time I got on this. They were the closest match for SKT so far, and if they continue that form for the rest of the tournament, I think we have a real contender there.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me about Team WE is everyone was concerned about their early game and not concerned with their late game. And it feels like they trained so hard to work on their weaknesses, they lost their strength.
Yep.
They've actually won both of their games before 30 minutes and lost both of their games after 30 minutes. So that could actually be good for them because a little bit more practice and a little bit more remembering where they are, they could actually have a much more complete game. So I think WE is number 3.
Especially when you're looking at average game times, right? G2 sitting with the highest average game time at 40, but the majority of these games somewhere in that 32 to 36 minute range, right? They're not getting to late games, so you got to be able to contest in the early.
I mean, G2 only seem to know to just strap on the hyper carry, force Sven, and take it to the late game. That seems to be the only strategy that works. Last 3 games, early game has been poor at best, but in the late game, Sven has been worth building around. It's just, can they actually get to the 4-5 item point to actually get the most out of it?
I don't think it's just Sven, though. Like, I agree with you that they're all aboard in Sven's backpack, but Perk's crazy play on Fizz. I want to see them continue to set him up, give him the responsibility, and have him go off.
Absolutely. We see a little bit of it here from yesterday. Of course, the mid lane Fizz, you get that flash, a little bit more safety.
Yeah, you could say this about almost any team in the tournament, but it's particularly true with G2. Their record could be wildly different if a few plays go a little bit off. I mean, Perk's making this play, killing 2, getting out after the other team taking Baron, essentially neutralizing that buff that may have blown the game open for the Gigabyte Marines, was hero play, but at the same time, the hero play was necessary to beat Gigabyte Marines, otherwise they're sitting at 1 and 3.
Right, you want to see them get there without having to get those huge comebacks or the smite steals or anything like that. Now we'll see if any of our teams can make moves with our 6 games today, starting with a Battle of the Atlantic as EU G2 Esports face off against North America's TSM. Then SK Telecom T1 will look for their 5th straight win as they take on the LMS's Flash Wolves, and after that is the GPL's Gigabyte Marines versus the LPL's Team WE. So those are the first 3 matches and the end of our second round robin. Of course, spotlight on this first matchup, NA versus EU. We're just 2 days into the tournament, and already some meta trends are shaping up. So let's talk about them, Jat. Where do you feel is the sweet spot for this tournament?
Yeah, well, we thought that shielding and protect the carry comps were going to be the sweet spot, and that's been true. We're actually seeing more and more support bans and Ivern bans because of that, so teams are kind of falling back on the next thing. With all the support bans taken up, we're seeing a lot of priority on Graves and Lee Sin. And then once you get past that, we see top laners between split push priority and tanks. And a lot of times the split push priority or who has the most shielding is what's controlling the champ select power.
And what's so interesting is since you have all of those shields, you can open up those, you know, hyper 80 carries. You can play the protect the Sven comps like the Caitlyn's, like the Twitch, but that means that you need those Fizz, you need those Fidos in the top lane, the Rumble, those things that can dive the backline or reach the backline there.
And I just love how it all flows on. It feels like the meta always keeps flowing forward because it's usually the tanks that were teleporting bot lane and stopping the hyper carries from being a reality. But the Ruin King is buffed, suddenly the laning gets better. Suddenly Kennen, you know, AD Kennen's not diving the backline like AP Kennen, so the hyper carry is a bit safer. The first shield's enough, and the hyper carry takes over a fight.
Exactly, but it's the stuff like the Kennen and the Kled that are breaking those protection team compositions apart because they want a death ball in group, so we're not seeing tanks because they can't disrupt that team play. So I like what we're seeing right there, and some of it, if not a lot of it, does come down to how you play in game.
I was about to ask, do you give the advantage then to teams that have those stronger carry top laners because of the fact that that's kind of that's the 3rd step in the pecking order in terms of picks bans from support to jungle to top?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, when we do see, you know, TSM break open games, it's because they finally give Hanser that power, you know, putting him on the Kennen, which he did phenomenal at. That's what they need to continue to do if they want to face across from G2.
All right, well, now I want to go ahead and turn to our first matchup and get you guys on record. G2 versus TSM. I'll start with my NA brother-in-arms, Jad, across the table. What are you thinking?
You're putting me in a tough spot, Dash. NA versus EU is always a difficult choice, especially when neither team has looked good in this tournament.
Right.
Fun fact, though, both these teams are on the verge of having their most successful MSI in history.
Oh, dear Lord.
G2 won 2 games last year. TSM won 1 game in 2015. So the winner, most wins yet.
There
to
you
just
have
set
it.
the expectation.
The glass is so half full.
It is so super half full right now. Both teams have been bad. G2, I feel like, has been one-dimensional, and TSM has been without a purpose. but I do feel like TSM has a lot of resiliency, and I've gone back and forth on this prediction so many times, but I do feel like the experience of TSM, the resiliency, Reggie and Parth will come up with the plan and find the right team composition, so I softly predict TSM in this game.
All right, day 3 they land on the composition that will bring them success. Papa Smithy, what are you thinking?
I mean, just like Jack, I agonized over this one because it's so close. I can see the path to victory for both teams, but I felt the same about the Flash Wolves at the start of the tournament, basically every team other than SKT, and no one has really followed the theory. So I kind of had to go with my gut in some ways, and what I really liked about TSM was their ability in their game over WE to play through Haunter, to play through someone who was strong domestically, pick for Haunter, and actually have a win condition take over the early game. So I think,
one win, yeah.
Yes, the one win, you're right. It's 1 out of 3. But then
so
again,
hard.
we're seeing consistency from G2 in terms of inflexibility of strategy. So I'm just nudging ahead for TSM over G2, despite the fact that some of the players, there's certainly Sven over Wild Turtle, there's many factors that might make you think G2. I may look a fool, but for now, I think that TSM can get it done, but it's going to be close.
But do you really need to change what is still working for you? Like, the Sven carry is working out. There's no reason to diverge.
It's only just working out, though, right?
But at this point, I just think that G2 just need another person to step up. The Perks or even the Expector, preferably Trick, needs to really step back into form. For me, I'm actually going to go with G2. I know that these two, you know, TSM had to go all the way, but I think that you split this map stylistically in half. Strong side of the bottom, strong bot side of the map for G2, strong top side of the map for TSM, but I do not have the faith that TSM will kind of understand their win condition, you know, kind of echoing what's happening here. We know that TSM can do it, but I don't know if they're going to do it this time around.
Echoing your call from the beginning of the tournament, your dark horse in G2. Let's talk about that top lane matchup just a bit, because we've talked about the strength in the bot side for G2. Haunter versus Expect. How do we feel this is going to go? I mean, you already kind of hinted that you think Haunter's got the advantage.
I loved the Kennen play that I saw. That said, talking with Deficio, I know that Expect also has those fight champions in his pool. You know, he can go towards the Rumble, so Expect has those options. But we've really only kind of seen the Shim when they had a lot of success, you know, against Team WE.
Yeah, I do think we have to keep track of side choice and what the priorities are going to be. I feel like for TSM's way in victory, they ban 2 of the shielding champions, control the 3rd one, or force it to be banned. When you run that style, just the way the picks go through, I think G2 actually gets a favorable top lane matchup, but I think TSM's going to be generally okay with that, because I'm mainly looking towards Bjergsen to actually make plays. He's yet to do that this tournament. If he does that, TSM wins, but we can go back and forth on this all day. It's very close.
I love it. This is like one of the first times we've got a split desk here at MSI, which generally means we're in for a good game. So with the teams about loaded up and ready to go, it's time now for us to hand it off to the casters.
Thank you very much, Dad.